Welcome back, everybody, to the deep dive. Today we're going to be going way back in time, back to the time of the Israelites wandering in the desert
Oh, wow.
after escaping Egypt.
Right.
So picture this. They've just fled slavery, right? They're in the middle of nowhere,
Huh.
and they need a way to connect with God.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the tabernacle comes in.
Okay.
We're diving into the book of Exodus,
Right.
specifically chapter 38,
Okay.
to uncover not just the nuts and bolts of how this portable sanctuary was built, but also, what it all meant to the Israelites and what it might mean for us today.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's fascinating is that the tabernacle wasn't just like some random tent
Right.
thrown together.
Right.
It was meticulously designed, almost like a blueprint for their faith.
Yeah.
Every detail, from the materials to the layout, had symbolic significance.
That's so cool. And Exodus 38 really lays it all out, like an
Yes.
ancient construction manual.
It does.
We learn about the altar of burnt offerings,
Yeah.
this key feature made of acacia wood and covered in bronze.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it makes you think, like, why bronze?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. Well, bronze was a metal associated with strength and judgment,
Okay.
which adds a whole other layer of meaning to the sacrifices that took place there.
Right.
It wasn't just some ritual.
Right.
It was about recognizing wrongdoing and demonstrating a deep commitment to seeking atonement.
Wow. And speaking of commitment, the Israelites didn't just hire contractors
Right.
for this project.
Nope.
The entire community chipped in.
Yeah.
Exodus 38 even lists the donations: gold, silver, bronze, fine linen.
Wow.
Imagine the collective effort and shared purpose that must have fueled this construction.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just about getting the job done. It was
Mhm.
about transparency and accountability.
Yeah.
The meticulous accounting of materials and contributions speaks volumes about the values that they upheld.
Okay, so we've got this incredible structure taking shape, built with communal effort and a deep sense of purpose. But there's more to it than just the main building.
Right.
Exodus 38 also describes a courtyard surrounding the tabernacle,
Okay.
enclosed with fine linen hangings on pillars.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they were creating a distinct boundary between the sacred and the everyday.
Exactly. That visual separation was crucial.
Yeah.
It served as a reminder that entering into communion with God required intentionality.
Yeah.
It wasn't something to be taken lightly. It was about stepping into a space set apart for a higher purpose.
That's a really powerful image.
Right.
And get this, they even used everyday objects to create sacred elements within the tabernacle.
Oh, wow.
The laver, a large basin for washing, was made using mirrors donated by the women assembling at the entrance.
That's amazing. It's a beautiful example of how they imbued ordinary objects with spiritual significance.
Mhm.
Water, of course, played a central role in purification rituals.
Right.
And the fact that these mirrors, items of personal value, were repurposed for this purpose speaks volumes about their devotion.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about the materials themselves, it was about the spirit in which they were given.
It's like elevating the everyday
Exactly.
into something sacred.
Yeah.
Okay, so we explored this physical construction of the tabernacle, this portable sanctuary in the desert.
Right.
But what's really interesting to me is how these ancient practices and symbols can connect with our lives today.
Yeah. It's intriguing. The tabernacle kind of offers like a blueprint,
Yeah.
not for building a physical structure,
Right.
but for like how we approach our own lives.
Oh, I see.
It's about extracting the underlying principles
Okay.
and then seeing how they resonate with our modern world.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
So like the concept of sacrifice, we saw how prominent the altar was in the tabernacle.
Right.
How does that translate to our lives today? Obviously, we're not talking about literal animal sacrifices, right?
Exactly. But that core idea of sacrifice,
Mm-hmm.
giving something up for the greater good, that's still incredibly relevant.
Yeah.
Think about our relationships.
Okay.
Sometimes we need to put our own needs aside to support someone we love,
Right.
or, to maintain harmony.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. It's about recognizing that sometimes the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one.
Precisely. And it doesn't have to be some like grand sweeping gesture.
Right.
It's often the small everyday sacrifices
Yeah.
that make the biggest difference. Choosing to listen instead of speak, helping out even when you're tired, or making that effort to understand someone else's perspective.
Those little things can really add up. And speaking of adding up, remember how that entire Israelite community came together
Yes.
to build the tabernacle? everyone contributed what they could.
Hmm.
It's such a powerful example of collective effort.
Absolutely. The tabernacle really stands as a testament to the power of community and shared purpose.
Mm.
And that's something that we can definitely tap into today,
Wow.
whether it's volunteering our time, donating to a cause, or even just showing up for our neighbors. We can all contribute to building something bigger than ourselves.
And it's not just about the end result, right? It's about that process of working together and feeling connected to something larger than ourselves.
You hit the nail on the head.
Mhm.
That sense of community,
Yeah.
belonging, it's something that we all crave.
Yeah.
And the tabernacle reminds us that it's something that we can actively cultivate in our own lives.
Okay, so if the tabernacle was like their sacred space,
Yeah.
a place set apart for connecting with God,
Right.
where do we find those kinds of spaces today? Our lives are so busy
Yeah,
and often so chaotic.
it's true.
It's hard to find that stillness.
That's a great question, and I think the answer is different for everyone.
Okay.
It might be a physical space,
Okay.
like a favorite spot in nature,
Hmm.
a cozy corner in your home,
Yeah.
or, a place of worship.
Or maybe like a particular activity.
Exactly. Or it might be a mental space,
Oh, okay.
like a practice, like meditation or journaling, or, a community you connect with online.
Yeah.
Even a piece of music that transports you to a different state of mind.
I love that.
It's about finding those spaces, whether they're physical or mental, that allow us to connect with something larger than ourselves, to find that sense of peace and perspective.
And remember, that meticulous accounting of all the materials we were talking about before,
Yeah.
that speaks to another important principle,
Right.
accountability.
Right.
Whether it's in our personal lives or workplaces or our communities, transparency and responsible stewardship are so crucial.
Absolutely. It's about being mindful of the resources we have,
Yeah.
both material and intangible, and using them wisely.
Mm.
And not just for ourselves,
Right.
but for the greater good. And it's about being honest with ourselves and others, admitting when we make mistakes and striving to do better.
Yeah.
That's integrity.
So we've talked about sacrifice, community, sacred space, accountability. There's one more thing that really stands out to me.
Oh, what's that?
It's just the sheer level of detail and craftsmanship
Yes.
that went into building this structure. It wasn't just functional.
Yes.
It was a work of art.
It was.
Does that have any relevance for us today?
It absolutely does. The craftsmanship really speaks to the intentionality and the care that they poured into creating a space, worthy of the divine.
Yeah.
And while we may not all be, building these physical structures,
Right.
we can apply that same level of intentionality.
To everything we do.
Yeah, to everything we do.
So it's about bringing that same care and attention to detail to all aspects of our lives.
Yes.
Whether we're building a business, nurturing a relationship, creating a piece of art,
Mm-hmm.
or simply trying to live a meaningful life,
Yeah.
it's worth putting in the effort
It is.
to make it something beautiful.
Exactly. It's about recognizing the inherent value in the things that we do and the people we interact with.
Yeah.
It's about striving for excellence, not for the sake of perfection,
Right.
but for the sake of honoring the sacredness of life itself.
Wow, that's a powerful thought.
Mm.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the tabernacle, what's one key takeaway you hope our listeners will walk away with?
I think it's this. Even though the tabernacle was built thousands of years ago, the principles that it embodies are timeless
Right.
and universally applicable. It reminds us of the power of sacrifice, community, sacred space, accountability, and intentionality.
Yeah.
These values, they really have the potential to enrich our lives
Mm-hmm.
and to help us to create a more beautiful and meaningful world.
Beautifully said.
Yeah.
To leave our listeners with a final thought-provoking question.
Mm.
If you were to create a modern-day tabernacle,
Okay.
a space that represents your values and brings people together,
Mm-hmm.
what would it look like?
I love that. Let that question be a catalyst for your own exploration.
Yeah.
Think about the elements that would make this space truly special, the materials, the design, the purpose,
Mhm.
but most importantly, who would you invite to share this sacred space with you?
It's a great question to ponder. Thanks for joining us on this journey back in time.
Yes.
And for helping us connect these ancient principles to our modern world.
Mhm.
Until next time, keep seeking out those sacred spaces and building community wherever you go.